Okay, I think I've got it all working. Right. So, hello everybody. Welcome to another live. Today we'll be talking about all about kind of school readiness, and I will be covering a few of the foundational skills that really will be supporting your kids' learning. So you might have heard me say numerous times that learning is not only a it's not only a cognitive sorry, let me get a little bit closer here. Sorry, that learning is not only a cognitive skill. There are specific skills that your child needs to have to be able to really to do all those things that are needed at schools. And I'm talking about these underlying skills that are not really taught at school. So, for example, going into school, your child should really be um, having a strong core to support those, their posture when they're sitting, so they're able to sit upright, and also provide that stability for when, they need to use their hands. You want your child to be able to have those good attentional skills, right? So they're able to pay attention to what the teacher is trying to teach them. You want your kiddos to have those good eye skills and those good visual perception skills, so then they're able to learn to read and write. And you want them to have those good, strong, fine motor skills, so they're able to kind of control that pencil with ease, so they're able to do all the writing tasks. Now, if they don't have all these kind of foundational skills, the learning becomes much more harder. So things, can become so much more frustrating for them. So, if they don't have those strong, that strong core, right? They will be constantly fidgeting and not paying attention, or they may be kind of resting their bodies on the table, right? If they don't have those good fine motor skills, they won't be able to have that grasp to really control that pencil to do that writing. And that is why I always say those foundational skills are so important to have, because it can really influence how your child participates in schools, what they start liking and disliking. Because if their body's not doing what it's supposed to do, as I said, a lot of those skills can become so much more challenging. So there are many skills that your kids need to have, but today I really want to talk about kind of my top three. And the first one is really establishing that strong core to be able to have that strong base of support. I want to talk a little bit about getting those strong foundational fine motor skills, as well as looking at ways that you can support your child's attention. So let's start with the first one, which is really establishing that strong core, right? So core strength is basically stability, is a foundation for stability and movement. It is the anchor to everything that we do. So core strength provides stability for all those static postures, such as being able to sit in a chair, but it also provides stability so that the other muscle groups are able to do their work. So, for example, being able to pick up a pencil from the floor without kind of tumbling over yourself. So it does help you to kind of maintain that balance, being able to sit upright in a chair while paying attention, and being able to use those hands, whether it's together or kind of separately, to be able to do all those school things with using your pencil and scissors and so forth. So it really is part of everything that we do. Now, if you ever wondered if your child has some core strength challenges, there is an easy way to test. And as an occupational therapist, I use obviously many different tests to be able to check that. But you yourself can do like a quick little test to see where your kiddo is at. And that could be done through a single leg balance. So um, you can check how long your child is standing on one leg, and that's kind of going to be the indicator for their core strength. So, for example, a 3-year-old should be able to stand on one leg for 3 seconds without too much swaying of their body. A 4-year-old should be able to stand for 5 seconds without too much swaying. And a 5-year-old should be able to stay for 10 seconds without too much swaying. Also, a very interesting thing to check is you can check your child as they are, with the eyes open, but you can also check how they do the task with the eyes closed. So once you close your eyes, you actually take that vision that also helps you to maintain the balance. So if you take away vision, you really have to rely on that internal body map. And if your child, there's a big difference with how they stand with the eyes open and eyes closed, it will show you that maybe the proprioceptive sense is a little bit more immature. So that's something that you can then know what to focus on. But how can you help your kiddo to kind of get that strong core? So to really start off, you should be working on the diaphragm. The diaphragm is actually one of the muscles of the inner core group muscles. And a lot of the kids who have weak core, they tend to hold their breath when they try to engage their core. So it's important to kind of strengthen the diaphragm. You want to have a longer exhale than inhale. So for example, you kind of breathing in for a count of 2, but then breathing out for at least 3 or more. The fun ways to kind of get strengthening that diaphragm is through using whistles or kazoos or different musical instruments such as harmonicas or flutes, bubbles if you're looking for something a little bit more quieter. And I also have a really fun activity on my YouTube channel called Bubble Snake, and that really is a lot of play with the bubbles, and I think the kids always tend to really love that particular game, so make sure you check it out. So once we kind of have the diaphragm, we want to work on some of the other inner core muscles. And the best way to do that is really, take the kids outside and let them play outside because there's just so much natural environment that will support, that really will support them. They can, climb trees, explore different playground structures. So a lot of fun things they can do. Other things that you could do also is do different animal walks. You can do games that involve rolling. So, for example, rolling down the hill, or you can set up, kind of empty cardboard boxes or bowling pins, and then your kiddo can roll over and knock them over. Another one you could do is what I call a roly-poly challenge, which is where your kiddo is kind of curling up into a ball. So they're lying on the floor, the knees come up to the chest, the hands are crossed across the chest, and then you want to make sure that the chin, when it's lifted off the ground, it's actually tucked into the chest. You don't want it to kind of going back up because that will, you want to kind of strengthen those kind of neck muscles and you engage the core a little bit more. So that is a good one to do as well. And, kind of my favorite ones are, always doing the wrestling and, tug of war, those kind of really fun activities. Okay, so once we have established and developing that nice strong core, you want to look at developing strong fine motor skills. Now, fine motor skills are anything where you use your hands. So fine motor skills, are used in dressing, eating, and of course, in a school setting, they will be used for writing. And it's important to have those strong fine motor skills because you will be giving them the ability to focus on being able to control that pencil well. If you're able to control your pencil, you're able to write neatly, but also write at you start developing a good speed because you don't have any pain or fatigue in your hands. Now, just to put it, the kids do need to practice the hand skills, and just to kind of put it in perspective, to show the difference between kind of older kids or adults fine motor skills and kids is if you pretend that you would put one of those cleaning rubber gloves on, but not those really tight ones, but those really loose ones, and maybe even use your a non-dominant hand to write something. This will be much harder for you to write, um, right? Because you just don't have those same skills. So that's why your child needs to practice their fine motor skills so they are able to kind of get control and kind of, take that glove off so they're able to manipulate the objects much easier. And how can you help with that fine motor skill development? Well, there's anytime you kind of use the hands, where you do some crumbling of the paper or aluminium foil, and you can do different craft kind of um, fun activities with that. Play-Doh is really awesome. There's a lot of different resistances that you can get the Play-Doh for, and you can do lots of rolling, pinching, squeezing. You can hide little objects in it they then need to find. Um, I actually have a fun blog post that you can check out on sensorylifestyle.com that really talks about the all the different things you can do with Play-Doh. Spray bottles are really fun. It's lots of kind of that squeezing and strengthening and hand separation. Squirt toys as well, or use of tongs, right, to do transfer different things. Um, Tearing paper is also really good. Kind of you need that pincer grasp and that skill to be able to tear it. You can do either collages with them, or my kid's favorite is kind of at snowball fights, where you get paper, you tear it, crumble, which is another great thing, and then you kind of throw it around, and you can make the snowballs a little bit, you squeeze them a little bit harder to make them smaller. And obviously then there's cleanup, and there might be, a fun competitions or things like that, trying to toss it into the garbage can. Using finger tug of war, so getting like a small piece of paper and using those fingers and trying to pulling it apart. You can do it just with them, or two people. You can use different fingers, right? You don't necessarily just need to use the pinching ones, but that's kind of the main ones. But it will help separating and strengthening the other fingers as well. Then there's, playing with sponges where you're squeezing water out of the sponges. You can play with pegs. Kids can maybe hang up their artwork using pegs. You can use pipe cleaners or wiki sticks to make different shapes, or, kind of twisting people shapes. Opening and closing containers, as well as nuts and bolts, Duplo or Lego blocks, or you can get cardboard boxes and get those little push pins, where you can just kind of squeeze in and you can draw letters in it, or even different shapes, and then they'll need to kind of squeeze in and push in, which is great for that fine motor stuff. You can do eyedropper games where you have water with some food coloring in it, and paper towels, and they'll need to kind of use that pincer to kind of squeeze that water and then release it onto the paper towel, and the color just kind of really kind of dissolves quite nicely, and you can develop a really nice pattern, especially if you kind of use multiple colors. And wind-up toys are also really awesome to do. So we've spoken about the core strength. Now we've spoken about the fine motor strength. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is the attention. And, attention is so important, right? Because better attention equals better learning. Because if you cannot attend to something, clearly you are unable to learn that. And attention is a very complicated kind of process. It involves you being able to be alert, then being able to select what you're going to be paying attention to, but also ignore things that you don't want to be paying attention to. So it's quite complicated, and so it can be a little bit kind of tricky, right? Especially, the younger the kiddos, the more kind of interests that they might have around. Now, the developmental experts actually say that your child should be able to focus for 2 to 5 minutes for their age. So, for example, a 3-year-old should be able to focus from 6 to 15 minutes. Now, what I do also want to point out that attention is a very fluid thing. So it really does depend on a lot of factors, what time of the day it is, the various activities that are doing. So it's not really black and white. Now, the things that can affect attention is sleep. Not getting a good night of sleep will definitely affect your child's attention. The nutrition that they're getting, right, or kind of being hungry can definitely affect the attention. Being sick or tired, we should all know that from our own experiences, right? Interest in a topic is very important, as well as task challenge. And task challenge is it can be either tasks things are too easy or too hard, so it can really go both ways. Feeling anxious or depressed or time of the day. So kind of the very first thing in the morning when you're waking up can be quite tricky, and kind of as kind of progress through the day, the later of the day could be as well more challenging for the attention. Then there's also kind of the ability to modulate and self-regulate, so being able to change your alertness levels depending on what you need, what alertness you need. And also there are, of course, developmental diagnoses that impact the attention. So how can you help? So first thing that I want to say is make sure your kiddo gets a good night sleep. Very, very important. Then you want to make sure that they do get a good variety of nutritional foods, because a lot of kind of those chemicals or the nutrients from those foods will help and support the attention throughout the day as they're being kind of released throughout the day by the brain. Then you can provide different snacks that can target attention. So, for example, snacks that are, for example, chewy, such as bagels or those chewy granola bars, or fruit levers are really great, or crunchy foods such as maybe carrots or pretzels, or even like the sour taste. Those are really great to kind of give a bit of a burst of energy when it's needed. You want to be also in close proximity to your child if you're teaching them something, especially more for the younger kiddos. You also want to make sure the task is motivational and maybe multisensory, where you include movement or songs or, different senses. And I have done a live about sensory learning. So if that's something that interests you, make sure you kind of you can check that one out as well. You'd also want to decrease distractions. So make sure when you are teaching your child something that they are not in a room where there's TV in the background, where there's other kind of things happening, like maybe cooking in the kitchen or other kids playing around. And make sure there's no real kind of toys around them on the table distracting them. For parents that might be doing, distance learning or homeschooling, a visual schedule might be something of interest, where they're able to either, cross out something, erase something once that thing is done. You also want to kind of praise their efforts, as well as limit TV time, because there's actually been some research done that shows a connection between the time spent on TV and the attention span. So just kind of pay attention to that. And of course, movement breaks, really, really, really important. Now, any movement will definitely beneficial for your kiddo. So when your kiddo is struggling, introducing movement is really good. However, if you do want them to be doing, if you do want to kind of be a little bit more target things a little bit better, I would recommend proprioceptive activities. These activities help to release serotonin, which is really in the brain, which is really important to kind of put the brain in a more quiet, alert state. So proprioceptive activities are those activities because they get receptors in the joints and muscles, any activities that do kind of pushing, pulling, lifting, carrying, those are activities that will stimulate that proprioceptive sense. So For example, doing, wheelbarrow walking or tug of war, and of course my favorites, which I mention all the time, is kind of the wrestling or push down the statue, where the pushing down the statue is when you kind of stand on all fours, and then the child kind of tries to push you over. So great, because there's just so many changes in resistance that you can put in, which really target that proprioceptive sense. Now, if your child does have a specific kind of diagnosis that does affect their attention, all of the strategies that I mentioned will definitely still be very beneficial for your child. So I would definitely recommend you doing them. Now, if you were to take anything from this attention um, component today, I really want you to think that your child, to be able to attend to anything and to kind of develop those attentional skills, they really need to have their brains charged every morning. And it's just like when you have your mobile phone, you need to have that phone charged so you can use it the next day. The same thing goes with attention. And the best way to do it is so that your child is able to get a good night's sleep. They have those nutrition, those chemicals from and nutrients from the good food that they are eating. So then they're able to release it throughout the day, and then present them with lots and lots of movement opportunities throughout the day. So those are the kind of the three things that will charge the brain: the sleep, the nutrition, and the movement. Okay, so I know this was quite quick, but I really hope that you found this useful. If you do want to get more detail about it, I will be running a course next week. It's called Equipped to Learn. And it's really, the aim of it is to teach you and provide you with the knowledge so you're comfortable in knowing what kind of play experiences you can choose with your kiddos to really build those foundational skills to support their learning. And we'll be focusing on postural control as well as the skills needed to support your child's listening skills, reading skills, and writing skills. So it will be live sessions, as well as those sessions will be recorded if you can't make the live sessions. And I'll be presenting you with a lot of kind of resources and ebooks to really give you all those activity ideas and information. So if you're interested, I will be posting a link in the comments, but you can also just go ahead and check out my website, sensorylifestyle.com, and it's under the courses section. So thank you so much for joining in. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next week. So take care.